Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We're at the very, very numerology lucky number of 333, which should be wealth and prosperity if I don't misremember my numerology. Today we have a personal friend of mine and also an incredibly successful individual who focuses on VR. It's really exciting for me personally as a human being to welcome Robert Watts onto the show. He is the founder of, is it VR Sale? Am I going to say that the right way?
Lightsailvr.
Lightsailvr,
Yes.
which has become an increasingly successful VR company. I'm going to let Robert talk more about it because he's one of the friends that I have that's doing something so cutting edge, so bleeding edge that I don't even know all of it or understand all of it. And all I know is that I'm super excited. I've seen some stuff he's done and I'm like, oh, I'm in it. I'm in it. So Robert, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself to our audience?
Sure. Thanks for the kind words, Robert. I appreciate it. So I'm Robert Watts. I'm one of the co-founders and executive producers at Lightsailvr. We are a full-service commercial production company that specializes in immersive media. And so immersive media touches many different categories. It's 360 video, 180 video, and interactive game engine content, such as branch narratives. You might have seen pieces like Bandersnatch on Netflix. So we basically take content, put it into a game engine, and then gamify it. And so our clients are mainly studios, brands, and agencies. And we work at all levels with all types of clients. And for us, it's about what is the experience you get out of being in a VR headset, right? If you can do it traditionally in 2D, it's probably faster, cheaper, and easier to do it in 2D. But that feeling of presence, that feeling of being there when you're inside the VR experience, changes your perception of the content. And it's really quite a fun medium. It's never going to replace film and television, in my opinion, but it's a brand new medium that's here to stay. And you can do a lot of cool things with it and touch people in a very interesting and fun way.
Brilliant. John, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself to our new users, and then I will explain why I asked, nay, begged Robert to come on to the show today.
Thanks, Robert. I'm the founder of MailRight. We build really semi-custom or full custom, great-looking websites on WordPress. Plus, we give you a suite of marketing tools to generate leads from that website. Back over to you, Robert.
So, ladies and gentlemen, and for Robert, the reason that I asked Robert to come onto the show today, and I really did kind of convince him, in my opinion, I laid it on pretty thick, is because I really do believe that, well, maybe today, this very second that we're sitting here, we haven't figured out a way to leverage VR properly inside real estate. Now, my personal humble opinion, because John and I, Robert, we field questions all day long from realtors on the show, off the show, that are asking us, what's the next big thing? What are people gonna be into? And when it comes to having been through this pandemic, if in the middle of the pandemic, somebody had been able to do what I've seen you do with VR, 360 immersion, walking through a house, there's no doubt and they could make it affordable. That would have been the way that people shopped and bought houses
Totally.
In that moment. Now, the technology wasn't there. The distribution of the headsets, the market penetration isn't quite there yet. But
Agreed.
Is it to say that it won't be? Maybe in 3 or 4 years, 5 years? I don't know that I don't know that I personally don't buy into it is going to get there. It might get there faster than we believe that is possible. There's billions of dollars being put into VR. You just happen to be a guy at the ground level, and I love the stuff that you're doing. So I asked you, my local resident VR expert, to come on and share your thoughts about the vision and future of VR. And free think, no commitment,
Sure. Yeah.
no, like we're not asking you to say, oh, you can set your watch by this prediction. I'm just asking you to say, I know VR. This is what I think it might be used for.
Yeah.
And I'm also going to ask a couple of questions of you of like, how expensive would it be to do immersive
Totally.
VR? We know that the answer like full transparency to the audience,
Yeah.
it's really expensive right now.
True.
But it doesn't mean it's going to be that way forever. All right.
And there's levels, right? Like you can do VR at many levels. I think, to answer the first part of your question, what VR provides you that's unique to the medium is exclusive access. Is you can put someone somewhere that they could never be, or it's very difficult to be. So let's say you had an investor who wanted to buy a luxury piece of real estate here in Los Angeles, and they're in China or they're in Europe, and they can't leave their country because of the pandemic or because it's a hassle for them to drop their work and do it. We can send out a team to create either a digital photoreal version or an actual live action version of that home and give a home tour. The reason that real estate, we don't see it kind of in a big way in real estate currently is, like you said, it's expensive. There are different levels of cameras. There are different levels of headsets. And only in the last couple of years have headset prices really dropped with the consumer release of the Meta Quest, formerly Facebook, the Oculus Quest. That headset's now only $300. That's my primary headset there in the background in that case that I use because it's a delivery platform. You can watch video on it. You can play games on it. You can do guided tours on it. And because it's only $300, anyone can pick it up. Now, there is a $6,000 headset that they use to design cars with and do components for the space shuttle. But not everyone's going to have that. That requires like a major gaming tower computer to run, and it requires you to be plugged in. But with the Quest, you could package it up, send it to somebody with all the content on it that you want. And I use Quest because that's kind of the go-to consumer version, but there are a number of headsets that are at that level and around that price point between $300 and $1,000. Like there's a company called Pico. It's based in China. We use a lot of their headsets for our enterprise experiences because they can be put in kiosk mode, which means you go in and you can only see exactly what we see. You put it on, it activates the app, and then it goes into the guided tour or the experience or whatever it is. Whereas on Quest, it's more consumer facing. You can be playing games accidentally if you didn't want to. So happy to kind of geek out on VR. Basically, the prices are coming down. It's getting easier and cheaper for the hardware, easier and cheaper for the content creation, and the more photorealistic versions of the game engine content. So that used to be up here, and now it's coming down. That's essentially VFX creation. There are other companies such as Matterport, which I'm sure you're familiar with, who go and use a live action version and kind of get that. But Matterport owns all the content, so there are trade-offs for using Matterport and things like that.
Right. So you keyed into something, and I didn't intend to ask this question, but you brought it up. So talk to me a little bit about Pico and that kiosk mode. That seemed interesting. Could somebody be like, could I wear a headset in a house, have somebody else with a headset in China, and then walk them through the house? Is that possible?
That is possible. What you're talking about is a networked, essentially multiplayer experience. So that is what Meta is pushing. The metaverse is, hey, we're both in an environment together. We're both experiencing the same content. There's a number of games and experiences and platforms that are like that. It comes down to the interactivity. So it's basically how much interactivity do you want the user to have versus is that necessary? So for example, if I was doing a luxury home tour, if I wanted to see the materials and see the space, and it's not really important for me to be like, I want to stand a little to the left, a little to the right, and I can just give a guided tour, I would personally capture that live action because you get the highest fidelity, the highest resolution. There's brand new cameras coming on the market. We just looked at a camera yesterday that shoots 12.5K resolution, which is captures even higher than the headsets can output. At least the lower end headsets, not the $6,000 headset. If you want to be able to walk around every single step of an individual room, what we would do is we would go in and we'd scan that room, and then we would digitally recreate it in a game engine so that you could have the ability to walk anywhere in the house. So you and I, as avatars, could be in that house and walk around. The trade-off is you get more interactivity, but you lose the live action element. So the fidelity is essentially what you pay for, right? If you want it to look hyper realistic, like Weta, Lord of the Rings style, you're talking tens of thousands of dollars, whereas with live action, it just depends on the camera you capture it with and what headset you're watching it in. So really, that's the first question we ask our clients is, how much do you need the end user to interact with it? You know, if that's less important, if it's less about seeing each room and going through a guided tour of each room so that I get a sense of scale and proportion and the fidelity of the materials and the building materials used, I would go live action. If you want to say, go ahead. Sorry, I'm going to go off on a tangent.
No, it's just, I think we need to, I need to clarify it for myself, and I think the listeners and viewers need. I think there's two completely different, we're talking about two completely. We got enhanced reality where you're still in the real world, but like what Google Glasses were doing.
Augmented reality.
And the rumor mill says that Apple are going to, in the near future, are going to be entering that. And obviously former Meta, formerly Facebook, they're investing a lot in both types. And then Google, I heard on the rumor mill that Google are going to re-enter the enhanced world. And then you've got full immersation where you've got goggles and you're not, it's not enhancing the real world. You're in a totally immersified virtual world. Am I correct in the way I'm framing it?
Yeah, there's a bunch of high level nomenclature, and it really comes down to the semantics and who you're talking to and how important it is to them. But basically, you've got AR, which is augmented reality, which is Google Glass and the upcoming Apple, wearables, and then you've got VR, which is you're in a world basically, and you can't see the outside world in front of you. So, Pokemon Go is a good example of augmented reality. And the only difference is whether or not you're closing out the outside world. Eventually, I would say 10, maybe 15 years from now, the devices we will all have will be glasses. They will be augmented reality glasses. And if you want to go into a VR world, they'll just opaque the pixels and you'll be in a virtual reality world. So it's just about how whether the device lets you see the outside world or not, and whether it changes the outside world. So on our website, www.lightsailvr.com, we have a page that explains kind of the semantics between the different categories. If anyone wants to go see that later to kind of follow up. But right now, what I mainly do is virtual reality as opposed to augmented reality, because, especially if you're going to do real estate, you don't want to change what people are expecting to see. You want them to see, you want to capture it exactly how it is, or design it, right? I assume would design it how you think it will look. So I wouldn't really recommend augmented reality glasses because they're expensive, really expensive. They start at like $2,500 for the consumer available one, the Microsoft one, and the field of vision, the FOV, is like slightly bigger than a postage stamp. So when you put these glasses on, you're really only looking at like a small little bit in your glasses at one time. And it's not really an immersive feel. It's mainly for enterprise use, such as I'm building an engine, and then there's an overlay of the schematics on top of the engine. It says, hey, worker, connect this pipe to that pipe, and I can see that within my glasses. So in the future, in real estate specifically, I bet you could make really interesting augmented reality experiences. So like you look at a wall, you look at a lighting fixture, and then it overlays in and it says, this was designed by so-and-so, this is the price point, would you like to add this to your cart, for your build, so there are different ways of playing it. It all comes down to what the end user experience is.
Yeah, I just thought I'd ask it because I think it causes a lot of people a lot of confusion. Maybe I've confused things even more, Robert.
Yeah.
So we're going to go to a break in about 30 seconds. As we swim in towards that break, I'm gonna add a couple of my thoughts, or going to see if I can clarify. I don't know that I can actually in this case, but Robert Watts is extrapolating a lot of things that he's future looking into. Augmented reality is definitely not something that could be applicable to real estate today, I don't think, but the idea of it being applicable in the future, it seems almost damn likely, because there's no purchase that we all make that's more vast or expensive or complicated than a piece of real estate.
Yeah, I know we've got to go for a break. The only reason why I brought it up, because in the next probably year, Robert, is that you're going to have a device from Apple, and they'll probably be able to link it to either the Apple Watch or the phone, and the computer powering both devices, and that could be a real game changer, Robert.
Could be. I don't think that Apple's gotten there, but we'll see. We'll see how
It's
that
always
works.
1 year later, 1 year later, 1 year later. So
Right.
I wouldn't put my money on this year, but
Right. They started trying to keep up with Google Glass, which has got defuncted already. That's why Apple started their augmented reality glasses, John. And there isn't competition that they're aiming at anymore. They could keep pushing it back for the next 10 years and not really offend anybody. Here's my bet, casually and as a joke. Guys, I bet you that the minute that the Google Glass guys come back online, suddenly Apple materializes with their product. That's what I think is going to happen.
You've got a point there.
Yeah.
All right. So we're going to go to our break, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for tuning into our episode here. I hope there's a few geeks really tuning in today, because this is definitely high level geek stuff for those of us that are really into that. All right. We'll see you back in a minute. 3, 2, 1. Welcome back to episode number 333. We're here with my good friend and VR expert extraordinaire, Robert Watts. He is the founder of Lightsailvr.
Yep.
You
got it.
Right on. Wonderful. I'm also here with my amazing co-host, Jonathan Denwood, the pugilist from Europe.
Where you going with that?
I'm gonna figure out a way to get interesting with your nomenclature every single show, man. Every single one. I'm gonna figure something out. All right. So we were just talking about a lot about what the definitions of VR and augmented reality is, but now, Robert, I want to move directly into what I think is the heavier, more meaty part of the topic for everybody listening to the show.
Sure.
So buckle up. Here's my question, and I asked you this question in private, and you did your best to answer it for me. So, being with all of your experience, let's say I've got two different types of property. I've got a $500,000 house in a median neighborhood, and I ask you the question, I've got a customer in Canada, what can VR do for me? Now I've got, and the budget to market the property might be a total of $10,000 if we're lucky.
Mm-hmm.
I've got another property in Beverly Hills listing for somewhere between 10 and 15 million. The budget to market the property is somewhere between $100,000 and $150,000.
Mm-hmm.
In each one of these cases, is there anything at all that you could do? And let's say in each case, somebody's giving you some kind of, I know I have an audience, they're far away, it's not convenient to come see the property. So there's a solid condition in this example where somebody might, it's not just a casual question. Somebody might really have use for somebody somehow being able to see this property through virtual reality. Let's say China, right? A China buyer, and they can't get to the US right now for various reasons. Is there any application for VR? And if so, what would those applications be, and how would you have that conversation?
Yeah. So there are applications for both. What I would say is it's best to partner with an expert, because there are a lot of gotchas in virtual reality, both in the capture, the technology side of it, and the implementation to a headset. But if you find a good partner and you work with them, they can help you at both budget levels. So at the $500,000 all in with a $10,000 marketing budget, I would say the realtor or the technology partner could go out and get a prosumer level back-to-back 360 camera. They cost, it's the price of a GoPro. You could amortize it over a number of listings. You could do a simple tour where you put it on a tripod or a monopod and you capture a 360 still photo in each room. And then you can have your technology partner put that together into a guided tour, or perhaps like a microsite website where you almost like Google Maps, where you click from one room to the next room to the next room. And then that person, the end user, the end client, can either see it through the website, or you could maybe ship them a headset. Again, price depending, these Pico headsets are $300 to $500. So right there, you're at about $1,000. And then whether or not your technology partner charges you whatever they're going to charge you, or you can figure it out on your own. There's tons and tons of tutorials on YouTube and other sites to kind of, for the more technically savvy realtors, to do it on their own. It's not a premium level experience, but you do get the complete sense of scale. Hey, I feel like I'm in that room. I got to look in any direction I want at any time. There's a number of companies that are doing those microsites, mine included. And it would really help someone who wouldn't be able to fly to go and look at the site. Now, you can multiply that for the Beverly Hills one, right? So for the Beverly Hills one, the $10 to $20 million home, you can bring in a professional VR company such as mine, or ones like that. I mean, we mainly focus on media as opposed to real estate and architecture, but there are other companies of a similar ilk as mine. They would bring in a film camera, essentially, or a camera that captures like a red with a fisheye lens on it, and they would shoot it in 360 at the highest resolution possible, so that when you view it in a headset as the end user, it's as if you're standing there, almost. The resolutions of certain headsets and certain cameras are almost as good as the human eye, and you can do more interesting things that are more relevant. So you could have a guided tour, you could have an agent, walk you through, explain every detail, really make it interactive if you wanted to, where you have the ability to, it's not just like you're on rails where you're like, I have to go from the master to the master bath. Like you can say, hey, I want to double back. I want to go back and look at that master. I want to go outside. I want to go in any direction I want. Getting up there with a full crew and a full camera, you're looking at a much higher price point, right? Starting at around $25,000 and going up from there, depending on how many headsets, the length of the experience, how many interactive spots you need, and what fidelity and resolution you want the end client to view it at. So
let's just say 25K is the starting point. Let's just pretend that you have an agent that wants like a multi-choice guided tour, multiple headsets, is telling you that they probably need you on site for more than, like, you need to be there for a couple days, not just a day.
Sure.
Like, give me the low, give me the high. Like, understanding it's just a guess. It's just a guess.
If you exclude travel, and this is just a very top level range, I would say the low is probably 50 to 75. What's nice about our crews is they're usually experts. They're strike teams. So we would roll in with a team of four to six people, and we could do even a massive, $30 million Beverly Hills mansion. We could probably do that in a day, single 10 or 12 hour shooting day if we had full access to it. The issue would be if you have talent, whether you have a realtor who, is going to give you a tour, or we bring in a celebrity or somebody of that ilk to give you that. The high end, you're probably looking at maybe $150,000. It kind of really depends on those specific elements we talked about, how long we have access to the site, and how many individual spots you want to do, and how much interactivity, because we look at the ways that you're going to be interacting with the end user, is going to be interacting with the content to make it seamless, easy, but still enjoyable.
Gotcha. So now, John, I have some questions, but I want to pause because I have a series of follow-up questions. But do you have any comments or thoughts about that?
No, but I really think for the high end, I think both. There are companies on the low end that you utilize a 360 camera. There's a couple of franchises that, a couple of companies utilizing a franchise model where a local video person can buy the camera and then they sell their services to real estate agents, or a real estate agent, if they could afford that, which I think they could. It definitely gives you a slight edge, something different than what the competition. And for the high end, if you're looking at the international market, it's probably worth the investment, isn't it, Robert?
Yeah, I think so. And I think the difference is it's a part of your larger package. Like when my wife and I were shopping for our house, like there's a difference between just looking at 2D photos and actually being there and walking around the property. And with 360, you get to see things that wouldn't be that aren't immediately apparent in 2D, right? You get to see the ceiling, you get to see the floor, you can put that 360 camera in any position that you would normally stand or sit in that room and get the perspective of that room from that point. You're not just stuck to the 1 or 2 or 2D photos that are on there. And I think it really helps augment your feeling and understanding of said property.
I agree with everything you both are saying. And I think that on the lower end, I've started to see market penetration. So I have a friend who's a photographer who does real estate photography, and he, in order to compete against other real estate photographers, he's added a 360-degree camera into a standard package. I'm pretty sure, John, that one of the amazing photography-related interviews that we had on the MailRight show was also doing 360, but I think he had packaged it as a separate product. Like you could do 2D, you could do 3D. So do I think there's a market? I think that we're talking past tense. I think there's a lot of people out there already investing in this to market their listings, like the lower end that you were talking about, Robert. That whole let's just go out and buy a 360 camera. Immersive, I've never seen in real estate. And for those people that are listening to the show, what I encourage you to do is go to lightsailvr.com and look at Robert's definitions about what the difference is between immersive and walking along, because I've experienced immersive. It is incredibly different. Words do not do it justice. Saying that you feel like you're in the room is quite different than looking at a picture of the room, even if it's interactive in 360. It's just different. And the only way that you're going to experience it is to either see it or grab a headset and put it on. And once you do, you will probably be like me, completely and utterly convinced that there's a big future for immersive VR inside certain segments of the real estate market. Like, let me give you an example. Destination markets. Most destination markets right now operate off, I'm on vacation, I see properties, and I would then buy. Very few people go to like Los Cabos to search out and buy a home. They go there on vacation, then they see a home and they remember it, and maybe they buy it sight unseen, but more likely they go back on vacation and then buy eventually. Imagine the game changer if there was a single real estate, I don't know, store, for lack of any other better word, that was able to immerse you in 20 or 30 different properties inside a second home destination market, and you no longer had to get on a plane and fly there to look at the available property. Come on, man. There's nobody in the world that can convince me that the convenience of like walking into one real estate store that happened to be local to you and then being able to look through the eyes of another real estate store that's located in your location and feel like you're in there's nobody that's going to convince me there's not a market for that, and a big one.
You hit the nail on the head. There's a huge difference between experiencing immersive media in a headset and doing it on the website when you're clicking and dragging. Because when you're in a headset, you feel like you're actually there. You have this thing called presence, the feeling that you're actually there. And I don't know if I agree about real estate, kiosks, but there are kiosks at airports now. There are kiosks at hotels now. I expect to see kiosks on cruise ships where you can do excursions. So I could easily see, oh, by the way, this excursion that you just went on in Cabo, here is the surrounding properties around it. You want to go and take a look at them in 360, in VR, in immersive, because you just rode a jet ski by them, So I can see real estate personnel getting into places where there already going to be location-based VR kiosks.
Got you. Well, time will tell. I think the exact mechanics are definitely wide open. But I just here's what I would premise to anybody listening to the show. Yes, the mechanics, maybe Robert's idea, maybe my idea, but is there somebody that's going to leverage it? Oh, come on, yes. And they will figure out the way to do it. And it will be and my opinion ultimately is it'll be somewhere based deeply around convenience, someplace like that you wouldn't normally like get to, or something like that, where you're like, oh my God, I can look at it right now, right here in this moment. I don't have to go there. Like, sure, sign me up. That's going to be a big thing. So, Robert, can we keep you for 10 more minutes and
Of
go
course.
into a little bit of bonus time? All
Yeah,
right.
of course.
So, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, realtors of all ages and levels of experience, we so deeply appreciate you listening to the podcast today. We're going to move the show over to the MailRight YouTube channel. That's youtube.com/mail-right. We're going to ask that once you move over to the show that you leave us a comment, you leave us a like if you actually watch the show there. If you would like to find me, you can do so at InboundREM.com. Robert, if anybody would like to find you, how would they go about doing it?
www.lightsailvr.com. Light like a light bulb, sail like a sailboat, and VR is in virtual reality.
Awesome. John?
Yeah, just go to the Mail-Right website, have a look, and book a chat with me or Adam.
Awesome. Thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in. Move over to the YouTube. We'll see you in a second. Okay, on the break, you edit this out, John. What I'm intending to talk to you right now about is more like the microsites and maybe a little bit more like with various pricing things for bonus content. All right. 3, 2, 1. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the MailRight Show. We're on episode 333. If you are seeing this, because you should be seeing this, we're now moved this show onto the YouTube channel. My good friend Robert is talking to us all about VR. He's talking to us about headsets. In an earlier part of the show, he mentioned that he has something called microsites. Now, I think there's a lot of space in real estate for microsites, depending on what you mean by them. There's lots of people that actually produce, including Matterport, something called microsite. So I'm curious to know what you meant when you said microsite and how much your microsite costs and what it is.
Yeah. Microsite pricing really depends on how many positions you're capturing, right? So if I'm doing a one-bedroom house, maybe I'm doing a single position per room, right? If I did one for Princess Cruises, which was a cruise ship, and we captured 20 or 30 different places along the cruise ship, along with a narrative that went with it, where you were following a family as they went on excursions and bought things at the shops and, visited the bars and got coffee and things like that. So a microsite is essentially a website that could live within a larger website. So the Princess Cruises one, for example, was an ad unit. It was a banner ad that people clicked on. And when you clicked on it, it took you into this interactive experience on a website. And it got like a 20% replay rate, which was unheard of for them at the time because people had so much fun because they felt like they were actually there and going on the cruise. But really, it was just a series of 360 videos that has a background technology connecting them in a certain order. You can build one that's on Rails like that, where it takes you exactly in the order that you want to go in. Or you can build ones that are independent of that. So you can go and visit at any point, any room, spend as much time as you want there or as long as you want there. And it can be both stills and video, depending on how you create it and where you want that. So we did one that was a solar factory tour where most of it was 360 stills, but when the host was talking to you or when you saw the workers working, that was video, and it was blended seamlessly into the stills for a much faster load time on the website. So you felt as if you were in a video, but really it was stills and high resolution stills at that.
Got you. So give me an idea of, so these are big brands that you've mentioned collectively back to back. You mentioned Princess Cruises, which did give me an idea which I'm going to propagate here in a second, but how much does a microsite, give me the range, the low and the high, the Princess Cruise, and maybe, I know you don't do much of this work anymore, but maybe when you and your partner were getting started, I'm sure you took on some mom and pop gigs to pay the bills.
Yeah, totally. And our peers / competitors in the space, I've seen microsites for as little as $2,500. On average, I'd say they're probably in the $10,000 to $25,000 range. I wouldn't go, if you're doing a massive one, then it would go above that. But the considerations are, as with all video in 360, what camera are you shooting on? How many points are there that need to be interacted with? And what's the development time for the back end? So they also don't have to be captured live action. You could create a pre-render 360 plate essentially. We've done that for a trade show where they didn't, during the pandemic, they didn't want to physically create the trade show booth, so we created it digitally, and then we had various kiosks within the trade show, and you can bounce between the kiosks and watch videos there and download PDF brochures and interact with the content that way. So it really depends on the size and the scale, but I would say, on the low end, $2,500, on the high end, $20,000 to $25,000.
Got you. Well, here's my thought about microsites. While I think that we're free thinking, we're extrapolating about the average real estate agent being able to do VR inside a home. I think it's very specialized. Here's what I don't think is specialized. Here's what I think is the market is ready for today. You take a big brand, Kaufman and Broad, you take even small custom home builders that I know of in San Francisco that are building 10, 20 homes, but they're $5 and $10 million spec homes. Every single one of these examples could theoretically extend their brand in a really clever way and I'm not putting words in your mouth, Robert. I'm saying I think that this would be an interesting way for them to separate themselves from every single other person with a website, every single other person using Matterport, every single other person using all the different things that people use to promote these properties. You get into either somebody that has a lot of homes that they're selling that are somewhat similar, and then you say you can step through a similar home in a very engaging way, or you take somebody who's doing multiple custom homes, custom builders, custom developers, where impressing upon somebody the differences of the environment could be very important to their brand, could be super important to their brand. Then at that point, I would consider, I don't know that I would do it necessarily. It would depend on the project, but I'd consider 360 VR for sure.
Here's the magic of microsites, in my opinion, is they give you interactivity. And interactivity gives you agency, you as the end user, and the agency drives engagement. So it's like, I got to choose to go over there. I got to interact with that. I went exactly how I wanted to go. I didn't have someone telling me or shoving something down my throat. This is what you need to see. These are all the features you need to see. We love exploring. We love being creative. And so microsites enable the end user to do that. And then you can add story and design and important points to the buyer throughout the microsite. And it feels organic. It doesn't feel, shoved down your throat, as I was saying.
Which I think that whole license, like I'm going to take license of the experience, me, the end user, that's where I think this technology, I don't know that I've figured out the language for it myself. I just think there's so much value in it. Like you put me in the room with a salesperson, Robert, and it's weird because I am a professional salesperson.
Yeah.
You would think that would mean I'd be super open to all other professional salespeople. And the truth couldn't be farther from it. Yeah. You have to drag me kicking and screaming where I know I'm going to be in a room with a sales professional.
Yeah.
Like I just hate it, even though it's what I do for a living, which is weird. So
it isn't at all, actually.
So like you give me an option, like say this is my inventory. Here's a headset. You can tour all this inventory on your own. I'll be back here if you have questions. Sign me up.
Totally.
Like, sign me up. Like I would love that. I would love that. You may not sell very much stuff, but I would love to have that.
You'd be surprised because, it's all about getting people into and out of the experience. We take a lot of touchstones from places like Disneyland, where it's like, it's not just about the ride. It's about how do you set people up for the ride when they leave the ride. So it's like, how do you create a premium level experience that someone wants to explore and wants to learn more about without making them feel like they're being sold to?
That would be... So that's the part where it becomes your prerogative as I'm going to buy some VR, connecting it with a creative, story-driven team. Because I agree with you. That's what you and I have a similarity. We're in completely different technology application parts, but what we partially do, each of us, is not different. I tell compelling stories.
Yep.
You tell compelling stories. We do it in different mediums, using different tools, but we both, our job is to tell compelling stories. If you do your job right, the story creates momentum, which then gives you a result. Which is how I perceived what you were just saying.
I would wholeheartedly agree. And what VR gives you is the technology that enables that, right? So like you can tell a good story in 2D, but you don't give the end user agency. There's always kind of like this proscenium feel, which is like, I'm over here, I'm watching something on my screen, as opposed to I'm immersed in it and I'm part of that story.
Got you. John?
No, I think it's been a fascinating conversation. In some ways, I'm surprised that it's not got more popular, really. I don't know the reasons for that. They're probably complicated, aren't they?
I think it's just people are unfamiliar with the technology, and we're always hesitant to try new things until you hear from somebody else who have used it. It's like a transformative moment when you try VR for the first time. To those out there who haven't, I did a piece called Walking in New York 6 or 7 years ago, where it was a documentary set in and around New York. But the shot that convinced me that I should start a VR company was from a helicopter overlooking Central Park in 360. And I don't remember the rest of the story, but I remember that shot, and I was like, whoa, this changed my perception of how this medium functions, and that there's going to be a brand new slate of content in this medium. So if you haven't tried VR, to anyone listening, I would encourage you to try it and see for yourself.
Yeah, I think you got the crux of the thing there, because I haven't. So intellectually, I can understand the possibilities, but we all are kind of driven by experience, emotion, and intellectualism to some degree. I suppose I really can't really get it until I've tried it, really, can I?
Yeah,
I wasn't sold, John, until I tried it.
Yeah.
Once I tried it, and I don't remember who it was, might even been Robert. Like, somebody put me in a headset, and it was a horror thing where these people were jumping out at me. It scared the dickens out of me. And I was just like, you think to yourself, oh, there's no way that somebody can create something so real that they're gonna get me. And it wasn't true, because it fools your mind, your ears, your mind, your eyes. They're all engaged. Your arms can flail about. And I think I did. I think I was trying to push something off me because I thought they were trying to jump on me.
Yeah, what's occurring to me is that I probably think it's going to be like going to the cinema, but 20% better. And when you got these films that are 3D and you have to wear these glasses, it does work sometimes, but it's normally hyped a bit too much. So
it's an extra ask.
I've probably got this expectation that I'm going to be, and I think what both of you are saying to me, that we're dealing with a totally different animal. Really.
Yeah, it's a content delivery system. So there's going to be crappy content. There's going to be bad experiences, and that's some of the problem. Is people have tried VR and they get sick or motion sick because someone puts them in a bad experience or doesn't warn them, like, this is a horror experience. I don't think that applies as much to real estate, because you're in, you're going to be going linearly, or you're going to be going in a comfortable or a calm environment. So it really just depends on the type of content that you're experiencing in it. So give it a try if you haven't.
For everybody listening to the show, a safe bet, excuse me, everybody, is a safe bet would be exploratory content like Robert experienced. I did experience some of that myself. It's pretty amazing to feel like you're legitimately in another country, another place, walking along a path, walking along a beach, in a helicopter, looking down in New York, when you can hear the blades of the aircraft shaking your guts, and you can see all of Central Park. It is the next best thing to being on the helicopter. So whatever the experience is, try to pick something that is going to be geographically and experientially desirable to you. I think that like whoever queued up the horror thing, I think it was just like, oh yeah, we can't scare you, watch this, and they did, and I was like, okay, I'm wrong. This was very cool. But I'm not big on being scared. But anyway, we are coming up on 45 minutes, which is definitely as long as we usually like to make these things. So, Robert, let me be the first of the two of us to say thank you so very much for making time in your busy schedule to do
Thank
the
you
podcast.
for having me.
We really appreciate it. I have loved the show.
Yeah.
Okay,
Right.
so if I'm one of our own audience, you've made my day.
Awesome.
No, I've enjoyed it, Robert.
Thank you.
It's been a great conversation, and you've encouraged me to go and actually try it. So
Awesome.
I'm going to do that.
Let me know what you think of it.
I will do.
Well, thank you both for having me.
So I'm going to end it now, folks.
It's a pleasure.